exciting morning we have had so far. Whether you heard Mr. Shercliffe speak about the UN, or Dr. Blumenfeld speak about Christopher Marlowe and William Shakespeare, you have already had an extremely stimulating morning. Well, it is not going to decline from this point forward. We have Mr. Brad Wyatt with us, who is going to speak about NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. Mr. Wyatt is a skilled and talented small businessman from a family of small businessmen. And he will talk about manufacturing. His family has manufactured many exciting products in the Worcester County, Massachusetts area. And without any further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Wyatt.
It's great to see so many young people here because I really do believe manufacturing, it's in my blood, and I really think that it's something that America has to get back to. First thing I want to say is, normally I talk to people about capitalism and free trade, and usually they're a little bit older. So if I say a term or something that you don't understand, please just raise your hand. In fact, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. We can clarify it, because I just want to make sure I don't get ahead of myself when I talk about this. You know, I want to start talking about family. You know, I don't know why it is, but it seems like some people just become like what their fathers were, and it's in the family. Like, for instance, my cousin, he owns a car shop. He's a mechanic. His two sons are mechanics. You know, there are people who are bakers, and their kids become bakers. Well, I want to tell you a little about my history, so you guys can understand where I'm coming from. And the first thing I want to start with is my grandfather, Roger. You know, his parents were from Poland, and so he was over here. He was born here. He learned how to speak English and Polish, but he was the oldest in his family, and he was the first to graduate from high school in his family, and he was really proud of that. I think the biggest thing I can say about my grandfather, he was a fighter. He never gave up. He was also about 6'5" and about 350 pounds. He was a big guy. And when he used to box, they'd give him a watch. And then he realized that it wasn't worth boxing because all you got was a watch. You're better off going into business. So that's what he did. He was an inventor, an entrepreneur at a time where you could do things without, you know, all the bureaucracy and regulation that took into effect. For instance, he had a house that he built, and he built a factory next to it. I think that'd be hard to do these days with zoning laws and government laws and regulations and everything else. But he did what he needed to do. He was a successful inventor. And I want to show a couple of inventions. Mr. Bubbles, one of my favorites. He ended up with 40 patents. Another one that was really useful, clothespins. Before dryers were cost-effective and very easy to use, people would hang their laundry on lines. And so these plastic clothespins were very, very useful. And you know, the funny thing about it is Massachusetts, especially like the Worcester and the Leominster and the Fitchburg area, was known for plastics. So it was a huge opportunity to do things, and my grandfather took advantage of it. He made these wonderful salt and pepper shakers out of plastic. He made a lot of interesting things, and as a kid growing up, I loved it because I'd be down at his place exploring, playing with paper with these and just putting them on my fingers and all his tools, and he explained things to me. But I always remember when I was downstairs, he had this sign up that said, "Help fight poverty, work." You know? And I remember my father, my grandfather, always working down there in his factory, even on a Saturday, even on a Sunday, going down there, whether it's cleaning stuff up or doing stuff. And so that just drilled in my head. And when we sold his property and took everything down, I wanted to keep that. I actually went off to Poland in the late 80s because we had some family over there, and I got to see firsthand what America has with freedom. Our relative was a professor over there, which is a relatively good profession in Poland, but he had very little electricity, no food. We had to walk up 5 flights in his apartment to get up to the top, not to the top, but to his floor with the room, and there was pollution everywhere. So it really was like a black and white issue to me on how wonderful America is and the opportunities we have back as opposed to the 80s in Poland, when those opportunities just didn't exist because government central planning just can't figure out what we need. So I definitely understand why my ancestors left Poland. Moving on. Now I want to talk about my father. So my grandfather I spent a lot of time with. You know, I was the oldest son, and so my father traveled a lot for business, so I spent a lot of time, and I just got to learn a lot, just almost by osmosis, just by listening to him talk about how he sold things and stuff. Now I want to talk about my father, Peter. Now he has an interesting life, not on my grandfather's side, but you know, on the other side of the family. He was an orphan, and he didn't even have parents. So when you talk about, you know, opportunity, I mean, nothing was handed to either one of these people, and they both were able to make something from America. My father was raised by nuns in an orphanage. He never even graduated from high school. And he told me a story about how they spoke French in the orphanage, and he couldn't speak French, and so he failed every subject. I don't know if that was an excuse for his bad grades or whatever, but he then had opportunity. He went to the service and he learned a trade. He learned accounting. And I think the key thing here is just like my grandfather, he persevered. And that's the one thing I want to drive across to everybody sitting in this room. Never, ever give up. Keep fighting, persevere, whatever your goals are. If you give up and quit, you'll never reach what you want. And that's what I learned from my father. Just keep working hard. And you know, I look at my grandfather, he was always down in his shop, you know, and I saw this sign. My father, thinking about it, he was always on his calculator, figuring out gross profit and margins and prices to sell things for. And so literally, I'd be sitting there watching TV, and he'd just be on his little calculator printing things out, looking at them. I never understood what he was doing then, but I certainly do now. So in any case, he worked hard, and he took a business risk. With two other people, he started a company in 1964, and we manufactured diamond blades. Now this is a diamond blade that I'm going to give you a quick minute intro in on how it works. What it is it's a steel core, and then these segments, these teeth, they're metal and diamonds mixed together, and then they're pressed, and then they're welded on. And so this is used to cut granite countertops. Everybody knows diamond is a very hard material. It can cut just about anything. They say a diamond. Well, these can cut concrete, granite, asphalt, lots of different things. My specialty when I worked at the company was when they put up a Walmart or a Sam's Club, they would pour concrete on the floor, and that would be called green concrete when it was just poured. And we would have special blades with special formulas that would be able to cut the green concrete and put lines right into the concrete to prevent random cracking. But you may not see one of these. You may not notice them when you see them. If you're driving on the highway and you drive on rumble strips, you know, those are created with blades that cut on asphalt. If you drive on the highway and you see them cutting out something on a bridge because they're fixing something, you'll probably see them using a diamond blade to do that. So it was a very popular product that a lot of people use. And my father was so proud of American-made products that he actually put in, I wish I had him here today, but he put in little flyers that talked about our Constitution, our rights, and everything else with some of his products in like 1975 to 1977. You know, we had the bicentennial in 1976, so everybody was very pro-America and patriotic, and people were open to reading about this stuff. And so with the blades, he would put in a little flyer that talked about, you know, John Q. taxpayer can't afford what's going on to our country. And this was back then. And in my mind, things have gotten a lot worse since then. So he was very proud of his American-made products. We had a sticker that said "Made Right in USA" on every product that went out of our place. And I think we did make wonderful products. We had over 100 employees. And then, I want to talk about this invention for a second. This is a funnel cap. Now, those of you who drive probably know you need to change the oil in your car. Well, what would happen is the oil cans were round and tubular, and so you would just put one of these on, and you could pour the oil in. So we had these funnels, and we had a patent on it. My grandfather had 40 patents. And so we sold many of these. Well, one of Henry Kissinger's relatives' company took one of our funnels, went over to China, copied the mold, and started selling them in America at a much lower price. So, hey, this is America. They did something wrong. I'm going to sue them and I'm going to win, right? No. You end up spending about $75,000 on legal fees. And believe it or not, the lawyers and the judges collude, and they find some way to sneak out of a judgment and say, well, it was obvious to put a cap on a funnel. Well, nobody had done it before. And it was just really taught me in probably 1979, 1980, that you really can't trust government. And you certainly can't trust judges for equality and justice. So, that's where I'm coming from when I talk about inventing things and manufacturing things. Now, myself, I graduated with a degree in computer engineering because, like a kid, I didn't want anything to do with my parents. I had my own path I wanted to follow. So I could fix computers, I could program computers, I could make computers, run databases, internet, all that stuff. It was pretty cool. But then my dad, in 1995, said, you know, I'm getting older. You know, I think it'd be great if you could come back and sort of modernize our factory and everything else. So I decided to come back to Massachusetts. And my father did something very smart. He made me work in the factory. So rather than telling people how to do their jobs after they had done it for many years, I actually had to go in and do everybody's job and understand how the diamond room works, how we weigh our diamond, how we measure our metals, how we press them, what temperature, what pressure, all the stuff that we do in the factory, running the lasers, running the brazing machines, pulling the right steel, stamping serial numbers on it. So I got a good grip for the first year in how the entire factory worked. And from that, I was able to modernize my system. You know, because I had a good degree, well, not because I had a good degree, but because I knew I was doing computers and I worked hard, I was able to figure out how to set up a database, how to track things, and we really had a great system. I say this now because at the stage the company's in now, they have a terrible system. And they always say, oh, I wish we had that system you had, Brad. You know, that was a good system. But in any case, my father finally retired in 2005. And so I had my chance to live the American dream and run the company. In reality, my father had been sick for a little while, so I actually had been running it a little earlier. One of the odd things that happened was I thought that the most important thing in a company was like your product, but it's really not. You need to, it's a whole combination of factors. You need to be able to make a product. You need to be able to buy the materials for the product. You need to be able to track your product, where it's going. You need to be able to track your finances so that you know how much money is going into every diamond blade. Then you need to be able to sell your product. And this is the one most people forget about. You need to be able to collect the money from the person you sold it to. Normally when you go into Walmart, you know, you buy a t-shirt and it's $10. You pay them $10 before you leave the store. In business, you have what's called terms. And so I would sell, you know, $10,000 worth of diamond blades to ABC Distributor Company in New York, and then they were supposed to pay me within 30 days. You know, business is a lot more complex and difficult than a lot of the politicians make it sound when they say, let's just raise taxes on business. There's a lot of moving components, and that's what I really learned while I was running the company. So, my father's sort of retired, and I'm running my company, and you know, we've got 119 people, and you know, we've got sales, and I'm working like 80 hours a week, because my margins are going down. Every one of these blades that it might cost me $30 to make, we used to be able to sell for like $100. You know, now it might cost us $25 to make it, but I can't sell it for more than $35. What's happened? A lot of this product is coming in from China and overseas. And you might say, well, that's the free market at work, and that's wonderful. And I actually thought that way for a while. That, hey, the free market, it's working, you know, prices come down, that's the way it is. Maybe the government doesn't want us manufacturing stuff in America. You know, we should just buy it, resell it, keep our sales department, and get rid of the manufacturing. And I think I was half right. I think that's what the government does want. The part where I'm wrong is, I don't think that's what's best for America, because then we become dependent. So, from my view of running a business, it was dying. You know, I just could not compete with the diamond blades and the imports coming in from China. And I'll get into free trade in a minute, but I do want to say that, you know, my company, I believe, was suffocated by excessive, bloated federal and state regulations. And I just want to give you a couple of them. A lot of companies have an HR department, which is human resources, and that department's in charge of the people in the company. You hire people, or you fire people, or you let them go. Well, many of you don't know that when you hire somebody, you have to make sure that you don't discriminate. And that might sound sort of odd to us because we're good people and we don't discriminate. And you're right, I'm not going to discriminate. I'm going to hire the best person for the job. But if you don't document it, dot your I's and cross your T's, somebody can say, you know, I was a woman, or I was a minority, or I was older, or whatever, and then they can sue you. And it's happened. It's not one of those things that, oh, that's not going to happen, don't worry about it. No, it really does happen. You know why? Because lawyers make money off it. Okay? Now, let's talk about getting rid of an employee. Most of you probably think when you have an employee that's not doing well, like there's a guy I had working in my Texas facility who was stealing from me. Well, that should be an open shut case, right? Nope. You lay him off, you get sued. I didn't consult with my attorney, so I would follow the right protocol. That stealing is not acceptable because it's not in the policy handbook. Okay? All I'm saying is that the legal issues that a company has to deal with now are just ridiculous. In Massachusetts, if you accidentally screw up somebody's payroll, they're entitled to triple damages, no questions asked. That's just a horrible law. Because I don't know about you, but I'm fallible. I make mistakes. If I make a mistake, I try to make it right with the person. And most business owners would do the same with their employees. But yet now there's a new law in the books that just scares everybody and creates more work for employers. Now let's talk about liability issues. And this one has a special place in my heart right now because I'm being sued for the last time, I might add. But I hope for the last time. But there's a fellow down in New York, and he bought a diamond blade, allegedly, used it, allegedly, got hurt, allegedly, and is suing me. That's real. He can't produce the blade. He can't produce a receipt. He can't produce anything other than his word that he bought a blade that said my name on it. How can I defend myself against this? Well, you might say the judge will figure it out. I tend to agree with that. I do believe the judge will figure it out and figure out that it could be his word against mine, but in the end of the day, the lawyers will negotiate, the lawyers will win, and we'll end up paying the settlement. So even when you're right, you're wrong. One time, I sold a product that was plastic, and I was told that I infringed on somebody's product patent that was metal. Took me 9 months, $250,000, and I won. And what did I win? I won the right to sell a product in America that wasn't even infringing on somebody else's product. And I'd like to point out that that $250,000, I can't recover that. That's all attorney's fees. You can't go after people for crazy lawsuits. And that company that sued me, they're allowed to do discovery and look at all my customers, my customer list, my prices, my profit. So I just got to say that, you know, this country of ours is becoming a country of laws but without justice. And we really need to turn that around. Profits. There are hidden taxes. You know, we talked about unemployment insurance with somebody here this week. You know, Massachusetts has one of the highest unemployment insurance rates. Safety and environmental regulations. You know, the state or the feds can come in and just tell you that you owe, you have to fix your building to this certain specification. I'll give you a good example, elevators. I have 2 freight elevators in my building, and right now, on Tuesday, the inspector's coming in to shut them down because they say I violate safety agreements. Well, there's no safety issue with those. It's a pure con from the elevator inspector to the elevator company to the $150 an hour elevator repairman, which is what my parents should have told me to be when I grew up. $150 an hour to repair an elevator. Two people, 4-hour minimum on things that aren't even safety issues. And this is what's going on when government gets out of control. And this is why we need to fix it now. You know, the point I woke up was in 2006. I bought some steel from China. And when I did that, I have to pay for that steel in like 30 days, maybe 60 days, whatever the terms were with that supplier. And before I could pay them, they said, you can't pay me in dollars anymore. That was my wake-up call. Okay? In 2006, a Chinese supplier said, I can't pay in dollars, I need to pay in euros. And I started saying, what's going on? I started looking online and started reading about stuff. Reading about the Constitution, gold and silver. Reading about Ron Paul. And I just said that, you know, we need to change this country. So, I have a friend who's a venture capitalist, and the 2 most important parts of any company is to produce or to sell. And everything else is just noise. Well, I got to tell you, with all the legal bureaucracy, with all the regulatory bureaucracy, with all the taxes, with all the accounting forms, there's a lot of noise these days, and that takes away from American innovation. And that's how America became a great country, and that's how we can become another great country again, is by innovating. And I just don't see that happening right now, so it has to change. So now I'd like to talk about free trade. A lot of people say free trade, you know, hey, thanks a lot, I appreciate that. Free trade, people say, is a wonderful thing, especially Republicans. They're the first to jump on and say free trade is what we need. And I gotta say, we don't have free trade. Let me ask, does anybody know why we don't have free trade? Let's make this interactive. Any ideas? Give me one reason why it wouldn't be free trade for me to make this here and for somebody to make it in China.
They have slave labor.
What was that? Anyone? Sure.
Do they not want us to trade?
Well, no, the other countries definitely want to sell their products over here. Yeah?
They don't want to buy our products.
Right, they don't want to buy our products because we can't create a good product at a good price for them. But why is it that it costs me $32 to make this in America and they can sell it over here for $25, yeah?
They overwork their workers, their people, and they...
Yeah, that absolutely. There's one thing. They have a lower wage scale, okay? And now let's get into some others. So they pay their people differently. Now in America, most companies offer health insurance. And in fact, in Massachusetts, it's required. In China, do they offer health insurance?
No.
Is health insurance expensive? Yes. Okay. Over in China, actually over here in America, we have departments like the Department of Environmental Protection. Okay, and they come in and inspect you the moment you move anything underground near your factory. They test your water and air. In fact, next to my building, they put up a $30,000 air tester because I had paint fumes going in the air. They never found anything wrong, but they wasted $30,000 of our money to make sure my company was doing the right thing. I don't think they have air quality testing over in China. Let's talk about inside the factory. The OSHA came in and said that we have cobalt in these segments, and they said you need to monitor how much cobalt is in the air people are breathing. I said, okay, that sounds good, we'll do that. Well, they said we need to meet this certain standard of number of particles of cobalt flying around the air. I said, okay, we want the best for our employees. If our employees aren't healthy and they die, that's not going to make my company money, so I'm certainly not going to take advantage of my employees. So, we go out and we try to test to the level that OSHA wants. They don't even have a system that can test to that level yet. Is that not stupid? They're creating regulations that can't even be enforced. And that's just one example off the top of my head that just drove me nuts. Yes?
Is OSHA the company or organization that they would make they had a few people who died or?
Yeah, that's a great question. OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and so it's a federal government organization. And so that federal government organization creates these big rule books because people don't have the common sense to do what's right in their factories. And I tend to disagree, because when people see something wrong in a factory, they put their hand up. I don't know about you, but if I was in a factory where I was breathing in carcinogens, or if I was in a factory where my hand was going to get chopped off, I would say stop the presses and try to figure out what's going on. But the federal regulation book is just so thick. I wish I had brought it. They issue a new one every year, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'll ask you this, how many people in companies really have time to read those books? And the answer is nobody. And so who wins? The lawyers. Every month I get a little brochure like this that says, come to our new OSHA, meeting OSHA standards class. So I personally can send myself or one or more of my employees to a class on how to meet OSHA's new standards. And that'll only cost me $300 to $500. What a joke. What an absolute joke. Adds nothing to my company, nothing to my business. Where was that before I got off on the elevator? In OSHA. Free trade, there we go. So my father's company, we manufacture diamond blades that look like this. Now I want you to picture, our smallest diamond blade is 4 inches, so that's really small. And our largest diamond blade was 11.5 feet, really big, huge. We would drive those things all around the country, bring them to big quarries, and they'd cut slabs for granite and countertops and stuff like that. Worked out great. But the government's not happy. They want to come in. Now they're going to the quarries and saying, we need to fine you. We want to raise the amount of money it costs for you to keep your quarry open. Once they do that, my business goes down. So all this save the spotted turtle out in Rolling Rock, Pennsylvania, now they've had to shut their quarry down, so now I'm not selling blades to them. Okay? It's a big cycle of government interference in the economy for no good reason. Okay. Oh yes, free trade. There's another reason why a diamond blade can be produced in China much more efficiently than in Massachusetts. Two more things I want to mention. One, a subsidy. A subsidy is when you get money for doing something. And the Chinese government want to keep their people working, and they want to make us poor. And so what they do is they give a 20% subsidy for every diamond blade shipped to America. So if my competitor ships $100 worth of blades to America, he gets $20 back from the Chinese government. That's a pretty good deal. So what we did was the diamond blade manufacturers in America, we all joined together in what's called an anti-dumping lawsuit, which I was skeptical on, and it didn't work. Because, again, you go down to federal court and you meet with federal trade people, and then you get down to who's going to pay them off more, in my book. Most of the politicians down there. So, because of this subsidy, the diamond blade people, manufacturers, joined together. We went down to Washington and presented our case called an anti-dumping case. And we claimed that the Chinese were dumping their products into the American markets at lower prices. And we lost. Not really a surprise to me, because I think when you go down to Washington, who's ever given the lobbyists the most money usually win. I do think it was interesting. The 3 Democrats that were on the panel, they all said, you know, we need more regulations in America. We need more protectionism. We should be taxing their stuff more. And the Republicans said, we want more free trade. We shouldn't be taxing any of these guys. And you know what? Neither one of them got to the problem, which is we are over-regulated, over-taxed, and over-litigated in this country. And it was an embarrassment when I read the transcript. They all are pontificating in front of their platform about how much they love America and this is why, but none of them address the real problems. So now let's go back to running my business. Because I am a businessman, and so every Monday I check out the cash receipts. Anybody know what cash receipts are? It's my favorite part of business. What is it?
It's getting a receipt that has cash.
Close. It's when people pay their bills. Like I said, I would sell 1,000 blades to company X, and then they would send me a check. So I love going on the mail. Mail was good. So every Monday I check my cash receipts. And the reason being is because I had to do payroll on Tuesday. And if I didn't get $60,000 of cash in on Monday, then I was going to have to borrow money on Tuesday. And because of the competition and the regulations, I was digging myself a deeper hole and losing more money and losing more money. Until eventually I had maxed out $150,000 on my home equity loan. And I had no more money to borrow. My suppliers were calling me on the phone. I was 90 days late. Normally you pay in like 30 days. I was even over $100,000 late with De Beers. They make diamonds. And I had good relations with them. I had to reduce benefits to my employees. That was actually one of the first things I did. I had to lay off employees. We went down to 79. And it just really, really hurt until I realized, you know, with the steel situation, that the dollar was going to be in trouble and it was time to get out. So actually, you guys are lucky here today. Today is July 11th. July 11th is one of my favorite days of the year. And I'm going to drink my water and think about why. I signed the paperwork and sold my company 4 years ago. I'm done. You know, now I don't have to worry about 119 employees or 79 employees. Now it's gone. What I ended up doing was I sold the assets of my company to a Korean company that has 3 factories in China and 2 in Korea. And so we just resell foreign goods. We took our factory, shut it down, threw away most of the stuff. What we didn't throw away, we sent down to Chile, because I guess they still like to manufacture stuff there. It was very, very scary. The company lasted 43 years. You know, it was really, really hard to sell the company, but I realized that it would be better for somebody else to shut it down than me. I would not be the right guy to lay people off that were there longer than I was alive. And that really, really hurt. And the best I can say from that is that I'm going to keep fighting to try to let people know that we have to change these regulations. Otherwise, there's going to be more small businesses that keep going out all the time. And I have to say, even selling a company, it's not over. I had operations in 5 different states. It's very hard to shut a business down. You have to get a certificate of clearance from your sales tax, from your use tax, from making sure all your payroll taxes, just everything. In fact, it took me about 2.5 years to actually shut down my different divisions all over the country. It's a pain in the neck. What else was funny was my employees. I had a retirement plan, and I had $4.5 million in there that I had to give out to the employees once I shut the company down. Well, that was pretty easy to give money to people, except you've got to sign off on like 20 different places, and nobody wants to authorize it because they're all trying to cover their butts and not get sued. You know, you think it's nice having a profit-sharing plan or a pension plan. Everybody is petrified getting sued. And I do have to say, there were actually 4 employees I couldn't find. One of them had over $100,000 in their account. And to actually shut down a profit-sharing plan, you have to go through the Social Security Administration, send certified letters to the Social Security to try to find those people to find you back. And it's a huge, huge process. And no bank wants to touch that money because they don't want to be responsible for it, and they're not going to make anything off it, which surprised the heck out of me. We finally found all but one at the end. So I want to talk about a couple things. We talked about free trade, talked about OSHA, the Occupation, Health and Safety, talked about Department of Energy. You know, my energy costs keep going up. And I'd like to point out that Massachusetts has one of the highest energy costs in the country, which just makes no sense to me. How can you produce things when it costs you so much on your electrical side? When I sold my company to a Korean firm, I also looked at a firm down in Georgia. Their energy costs were a little over half of ours. They were in shock at how much we were paying for electric. You can't manufacture in that type of environment. Yet I would imagine to think that people in Boston can't figure that out. But getting back, OSHA, MSHA, Department of Energy, all these regulatory groups, can anybody find them in the Constitution for me? What's it, Norm? What's the article?
Article 1.
Article 1. It defines the powers of the government. I don't see any of those in there. Do you see them in there?
Haven't found them yet.
Me neither. I keep looking. I can't find them. So the real solution to restore America, entrepreneurship, and innovation is to get the government out of the way. And to me, getting the government out of the way is as simple as following the Constitution. It was there for a reason. It gave people the foundation and to have a great opportunity, like my grandfather from Poland and like my father who didn't even have parents had. And I want that same for me, and I want the same for my son and his kids too, our posterity. And I just see it slowly evaporating away. So I like to say that I want to fight to restore the respect of small business. You know, when you go to a movie, like kids' movies these days, you know, the terrorist is always some corporate businessman trying to make a lot of money, you know, or some guy poisoning the water or something like that. That's just not right. I really believe successful businessmen should be admired and not, you know, cursed for doing well and creating jobs and wealth and prosperity for their area. You know, at one point in time, I had 119 employees, and I brought $19 million into Worcester, okay? From that, it went out to the employees who could pay their mortgages, their kids' college, their pizza bills, TVs, couches. It went into the small machine shops that I had work done on. It went into you know, the hotels when salespeople would come in and visit us. That 19 million is like capital appreciation, just being sucked into Worcester. That's a beautiful thing because it ripples across. Okay? That's gone now. And now, it just seems like to get capital, the only way to do it is to beg the federal government to give you a stimulus package. You know, the days where you could produce wealth, where you manufacture something, where you take something that's worth half a cent, you make something that's worth 5 cents. You've really created wealth. Okay? And if you can do that in your community, you're creating something great because you're going to get wealth coming into your community. And that's what's so great about manufacturing and production. So I'd like to say that successful business should be respected and not a bad guy. And I'd like everybody just to sort of think about that business is a good thing. Okay? We like being able to go to Walmart and get stuff. And when I ask other kids, not kids in the room, what they want to be, and what you guys want to be, but I ask other kids, I hear things like rapper, athlete, you know, American Idol star, okay? That's not what America's about. America's about being independent, thinking of great ideas and implementing them. And that's really a great feeling of success. More than the money that you'll put in your pocket, it's knowing that you made a difference and you changed and you helped out a lot of people on the way. So, just about ready to conclude. I want to mention one more thing. You know, the dollar has its problems, and America is on its problems with the debt and the deficit. And Rand Paul once said, if you look at a picture of North Korea and South Korea, and North Korea is a very dictator-controlled, communistic country. South Korea is a free market country, somewhat similar to our own. Okay? If you take a picture at nighttime of these two countries, you get one little light here in North Korea, and you have tons of lights here in South Korea. And that's the opportunity that we have here in America. We have tons of lights, we have tons of activity, tons of commerce. Okay? And that's what we want to maintain. And when people say, you know, if the dollar and the debt collapses, that free markets don't work and capitalism is bad, you have to make sure to say, well, did we really have a free market when we had OSHA and EMSHA and, you know, the federal government determining the interest rates through the Federal Reserve and all that? We never really had a free market here. So if for some reason capitalism fails sometimes, make sure you let people know that capitalism never failed. The people failed, the government failed, but capitalism did not fail. So, just as my ancestors persevered, and I started with hard work, you know, don't give up. So have I. I know that I've got to fight. So I try to fight at the local level, the Worcester City Council, down in Worcester, Mass, and make sure that, you know, they don't kill my taxes and they have good policies. And none of them really listen to me, but they're always a little upset when I get before the podium and talk to them at a town meeting. And I'm really disappointed because most of those people who are city councilors in the city of Worcester, I don't think they've ever run a business. I don't think they've ever signed the front of a paycheck and had employees. And it just really kills me that these central planners are the ones trying to decide how we're going to run our business. And it's just wrong. And so we have to get involved politically. And that's what I'm doing. And by the way, after I talked to city council, I got a bunch of letters from people who go, I feel exactly like you do. Let me know the next time you're going to be doing something because I want to help out. And that's exactly what has to happen. People have to start speaking up against these elevators that I'm fighting for right now, against the city council raising my taxes and having foolish regulations. So just never give up. So the key is Washington needs to get out of the way. Easiest way to get out of the way is to go back to following the Constitution